Narrator, VO. It was the era of champagne suits and shiny videos. Hip-hop, once a voice for the voiceless, was changing. Some say it evolved. Others say it was hijacked. But one name comes up every time this conversation surfaces. Diddy. Chi-A-N-T. Radio interview room. 2 hosts speaking. Hey, host. 1. Well, you said that Diddy destroyed hip-hop. I mean, not single-handedly, but he had his hand in it. He pulled out some serious Jenga pieces from the whole structure. A host 2? I mean, he didn't do it all by himself. No, but he was instrumental. He handed the keys to the vultures. He helped morph hip-hop from a culture to a commodity, from expression to excess. Flashback, early 90s club scene. Diddy surrounded by artists, cameras flashing, narrator, VO, Sean Combs, also known as Puffy, Puff Daddy, or Diddy, entered the game not as a rapper, not as a DJ, but as a visionary executive. He had the ears, he had the looks, and most importantly, he had the ambition. In T studio, Biggie writing in a notebook, Puffy on the phone in background. Narrator, VO. Puffy wasn't writing bars. He wasn't chopping samples, but he was curating a sound, an image, and a formula. Ghost writers, check. Ghost producers, check. Celebrity features, check. He assembled music like a movie director. Host 1, VO. He helped turn hip-hop into a materialistic, debauchery-based genre. Bentley's bottles bling, it became the new language of success. Share debate panel, their music, historians discuss critic. Juan, on, read. First of all, whoever said that, instrumental in handing the keys to the vultures, that was eloquently said. I didn't. Even though that was me, critic 2. And number 2, before Diddy, when did an executive seriously decide he was gonna drop a record? Like actually step in front of the camera and become the artist himself? Flashback, Russell Simmons on stage. Then cut to Barry Gordy in studio, critic 1. Well, Russell Simmons tried it back in the day. Did a rock star type record, critic 2. Yeah, but I got a better one for you. Barry Gordy. Barry Gordy made actual records. He co-produced early Motown stuff. Critic 1, yes, absolutely, look it up. Barry was the real deal, a real producer before he became a powerful executive. That's different. Critic 2, exactly. Barry Gordy didn't make a Barry Gordy album after he became head of Motown. That's the distinction. Studio, split screen, Barry Gordy at soundboard. Diddy dancing in a video narrator. VO, Barry came up from the music. Diddy came up from the marketing. But you can't deny Puffy's genius. He's a phenomenal executive producer, critic 1, VO. You can't take that away from him. His musical ear is gold. He could hear a hit before it happened. In T recording session, final mix approved by Diddy, artist in the booth, narrator, VO. Still, he wasn't an artist. Not by the definition that hip-hop grew up with, but that didn't stop him from becoming one. In T industry roundtable discussion, late night conversation, host Diddy was not a rapper, not a producer, but he became the main act guest. It's crazy. Nobody had ever seen anything like that before. Like Jimmy Iovine becoming an artist, or Leo Cohen dropping an album, but Diddy made it work. Host Jermaine Dupri tried something similar. Guest. Yeah, Jermaine Dupri was a producer. He put out Criss Cross and then started rapping, had his own albums. But that came after Puff, Harshback, Jermaine Dupri in Money Ain't a Thang video narrator. VO, JD might have taken the idea from Puff, but JD was more rooted in production. Still, even he took notes. Guest, VO. He dressed Chris, Cross like Naughty by Nature. The Brat? That was Snoop energy. He was biting. Let's keep it real. Flashback, Naughty by Nature. OPP then, Jump by Criss Cross. Narrator, VO. Hip-hop is always borrowing. But some saw Puff's approach as selling out. In T Podcast Room, 2 hosts discuss host 1. Let's be honest, Puffy was never known as a great rapper. He was tolerated because the beats were fire and the features carried him. Host 2? Exactly. Nobody has Diddy on a top 100 rapper list. Not top 10, Not even 300 host one. Say top 100 New York rappers, he still doesn't make it. Screen list scrolling. Top 100 rappers. No Diddy narrator. VO. Diddy had hits, but not bars. He had vision, but not verses. The studio, Biggie writing. Puff's verses, then laughing. Narrator. VO. He had the best ghostwriters. Biggie himself penned verses. The greatest producers laid the beats. All Diddy had to do was show up. Flashback. Can't nobody hold me down. Music video guest, and nobody stopped him. Because it worked. The sales were there. The charts responded. Scene, industry reactions. Montage. DJ Clue. Funk Flex. Charlemagne the Godway in Charlemagne. VO. He wasn't loved for the music. He was admired for the machine. Puffy was the machine. No, he did not, but he was very instrumental in the production mix. Okay, alright, fair enough. I just want to say there are very talented musical people, like Jimmy Iovine, who never tried to become an artist or some front-facing figure. That's not something you see very often, right? Jermaine Dupri. Jermaine Dupri was an artist. He was a producer who broke in by putting out acts like Criss Cross and then gradually stepped into the spotlight himself, dropping his own albums and rapping. So Jermaine Dupri did transition from a behind-the-scenes creative to a performing artist, but it wasn't all at once. And it wasn't exactly pioneering. I think JD kind of broke the mold, but Puffy was already doing what he ended up doing. So Def was a very successful label at the time. It may not have been quite as big as Bad Boy, but it was in the same arena. Now, imagine if Dame Dash had gone full artist mode. I mean, sure, he dabbled a bit, tried to be all in the videos, dancing and all that, but what if he actually dropped a Dame Dash and the Family album? That would have been a whole different look. Still, Jermaine Dupri did have his own albums, that's a fact, but they came after Puff. So if you think about it, Jermaine was likely inspired by Puff's formula. Was it No Way Out that sparked this whole thing? Yeah, and respect to everything Jermaine's done, but he did bite a lot of styles. That's just real talk. When Criss Cross came out, the way he dressed them, baggy clothes, backwards, it felt like a little naughty by. Nature clone. That wasn't just a coincidence. And when Da Brat dropped, he was clearly tapping into that Snoop Dogg vibe. Braids, laid-back style, West Coast flavor. That was trendy at the time. He was good at seeing what worked and flipping it his own. Hey, no doubt. But originality? That's debatable. Naughty by Nature. They were already out when Criss Cross came out. Look it up. Naughty by Nature's breakout was OPP, and Criss Cross's Jump dropped a year later. Tretch from Naughty even said Jermaine owed him money, that the Criss Cross style was jacked from their look and moves. The Dickie suits, the stage movements, all that. He said they just turned their clothes backward and sold it, and then when Da Brat hit the scene, she came with a totally Snoopish aura. Baggy clothes, hardcore street image, slick flow. You could tell Jermaine was watching what was working and then doing his own version of it. That's what I mean when I say biting. Not that he wasn't dope, just that he wasn't original in all aspects. He adapted and duplicated what was popular, and that's what Puff really popularized. Not biting necessarily, but that you didn't need to be the lyricist or the original innovator anymore. You just had to package things right. That was Puff's magic. He wasn't a rapper, wasn't a producer in the traditional sense, but he had vision, influence, connections, and the ability to execute. Puff Daddy was the first executive to step into the limelight like, I can be the face of this too. He made it cool to be the mogul and the artist at once. And why not? He had Biggie writing for him. He had the hottest producers. He had access to every feature he wanted. He had the machine. The only thing stopping him would have been himself. But let's keep it real. No one has ever loved Diddy for rapping. People tolerated him because the records were hot, not because his bars were undeniable. It was always the beat, the hook, the feature, the vibe. You'll never see Diddy on a top 100 rapper list. Not even close. Not top 10, not top 50, maybe not even top 300. You could narrow it down to just New York rappers. Still no Puffy. He's just not that guy in that lane. He's known for being a mogul, a boss, not a spitter, even though he dropped albums. He's not the artist you think of when listing icons of lyrical greatness. He's the executive who made power moves, a visionary, but lyrically never respected. He was tolerated because of the production and the machine behind him. And that's what makes him unique. Because even without being lyrically talented, he still became a rap icon by building the brand, making the hits, and playing the role. Before Christmas, yes. Wait, hold on, let's get this timeline right. Criss Cross was still in junior high when they came out with Jump. Now let's talk Naughty by Nature. What was their big track? OPP, right? That was their breakout single. So let's pin this down. What year did that come out? You're right. Criss Cross came out a year after OPP. No denying that. And here's where it gets interesting. Treach had a problem with it. Straight up said, yo, Jermaine owes me some money and all that. Because the way Criss Cross was dancing, the style, the vibe, it was all mimicking Naughty by Nature. Look at how they moved. It wasn't subtle. That little jump around, tough but youthful. Street style, straight borrowed. And let's not forget how they dressed. They just turned their gear backwards. But beyond that, they had the Dickie suits, the same rugged East Coast vibe. Honestly, when you line them up side by side, Criss Cross really did look like mini versions of Naughty by Nature. There's no debate there. And later on, when Jermaine Dupri brought out Da Brat, she was clearly influenced by Snoop. From the braids to the laid-back, slick Cali attitude, Jermaine was right in the Snoop wave. She even had that G-Funk touch in her sound. So when we talk about biting, that's what we mean. It wasn't about paying homage or innovating from inspiration. Jermaine saw what worked and cloned it. But you know what? It worked. He had a knack for timing. He'd pick up what was hot in the culture and flip it into his own brand. But let's zoom out for a second. Puffy, he made it fashionable for executives to become artists. That wasn't normal back then. Before him, execs stayed behind the scenes. They made moves, signed artists, handled business, but didn't grab the mic. But Puff said, nah, I'm stepping to the front too. And why wouldn't he? He had Biggie writing for him. He had the hottest producers on speed dial. He had clout. He had the machine. So he decided to use it, and people tolerated it. Let's be honest, no one ever called Puffy a great rapper. No one put him on top lyricist lists. He wasn't that guy. But he had good beats, amazing features, and a presence. He knew how to show up, be flashy, make people talk. Dr. Dre is a different story. Dre was always a rapper and a producer. From the world-class Wrecking Crew to NWA, he had skin in the game as an artist from day one. And yes, later he became an exec, a mogul even, but that arc makes sense. Artist to executive. Puffy's story is flipped. Executive to artist. That's rare. Same with Jermaine Dupri. He was a producer first. He brought us Criss Cross, then later made his own albums. But again, that was after Puffy showed that lane was even possible. Dupri may have done it better lyrically, but he didn't do it first. Puffy opened that door. Even if people laugh at his bars, he cracked that ceiling. What's wild is that Diddy didn't need to do it. He had Bad Boy, he had Biggie, he had Maze, he had 112, Faith Evans, the whole squad. But ego is a hell of a drug. He wanted the spotlight too. And honestly, who was going to stop him? He had the capital, the control, the radio connects. Still, let's tell the truth. No one ever says play that Puff Daddy verse again. You don't hear that. It's always about the hook, the beat, the feature. People tolerate Puff. They don't praise him for lyrical genius. That's why he doesn't show up on any top 100 rapper lists. Not for the country, not for New York, not even for Bad Boy alone. He's not that type of artist. And that's okay because he never needed to be. But when we're dissecting this, we got to acknowledge that Puff created a blueprint. He said executives could be stars. They could wear the fur coats, be on the album covers, headline the tours. And it changed everything. This shift brought with it a wave of blurred lines. Artists became businessmen. Businessmen became artists. Labels became fashion houses. Music became marketing. Authenticity got traded for aesthetics. And hip-hop started to pivot from raw expression to curated image. So yes, Puff pulled out some Jenga pieces. He didn't collapse the whole tower, but he set it wobbling. He handed some keys to the vultures. He let ghostwriters shine without getting credit. He let producers cook behind the scenes while he took the glory. And now we're living in a hip-hop world where artistry is often secondary to branding, where talent plays second fiddle to virality, where being seen is more valuable than being heard. And whether that's a good thing or not, that's a debate for another day. Let me know if you want to expand it further into 10,000 words or more. I'll keep building it from here. An executive who wasn't known for rapping or even trying to be an artist suddenly became gassed up with confidence. He had a good ear, no doubt. Someone who knew how to push buttons behind the scenes, how to get radio play, and how to work the industry from the background. And at some point, he probably thought, if I can do all this behind the scenes, why not step into the spotlight myself? That's where it all shifted, with Biggie writing for him, top-tier producers crafting the beats and ability to get every feature he wanted. There really wasn't anything stopping him. And honestly, no one could. But let's keep it real. Nobody has ever truly liked Diddy as a rapper. They've tolerated him, sure, on some songs, but never because of him. It's always been about the hook, the beat, or the feature. He's never been the reason someone pressed play. Have you ever seen a top 100 rapper list with Diddy's name on it? I'm not even talking top 10 or a Mount Rushmore. I'm saying any top 100 list. And even if you narrow it down to just New York rappers, he still doesn't make it. Not even in the top 300, because nobody thinks of him like that. Even though he's made albums, when people talk about legendary rappers, Diddy's name just doesn't come to mind. They'll mention Biggie within the first few names, but Puff, not a chance. He's simply not seen as a real rapper. People only tolerate his music because of the production value, the catchy beats, and the star-studded features. And sure, there are other artists who fall into that tolerated category, but Puff is arguably the most well-known example of it. He represents that rare case where executive status, connections, and influence substituted for actual lyrical talent. And he used that influence to push himself as an artist, whether the culture wanted it or not.